I personally think that there's definitely some things that need to change from a multiplayer standpoint. And we have this huge list. I don't know if we want to go back and forth on it or not. But I think we could probably both agree some multiplayer stuff would definitely need to change. Um, but you mentioned a couple. You said the wall sticking. So, in Gears One, you'd attach to a wall, and if you tried to roll off the wall, you get stuck in a pose, shotgun, and die. There was crab walking. That needs to immediately get fixed, which was annoying. People be flying up in the air doing crab walk flips and all that shit. That needs to be fixed. The melee bounce. This was one that I don't even think a lot of people even realized that you could do it. I think this was a really, really high level thing. Like Gears pros knew about it, and then you didn't see as many people using it. Like in, I would even say semi pros. Like you didn't see a lot of people melee balancing at all. But Gears of War One, you can actually melee and wall bounce simultaneously. So that's not possible in Gears of War 2, and it's not possible in Gears of War 3. But for whatever reason, like the animation doesn't cancel as you're wall bouncing, so it looks like you're just sliding, but someone will actually take damage and fall back. Like they'll be stunned in the basically two piece, and you can two piece them off of melee bouncing essentially. So that's a thing that I feel like definitely needs to be addressed if they're going to bring back Gears of War One. That's one of the biggest issues I have in quarter, and obviously balance across the board. But do you remember that? You know who used to do it a lot, Colin? Alex.
Alex, yeah. I remember you did the roll. You did melee, then back roll was your go-to.
Yeah, I remember. I remember some fights against him and Balabus.
Yeah.
That Balabus,
That's an old school name.
Bawabus,
Old school
Bawabus.
name.
He was another melee bouncer, and people don't realize that. Like people were like, oh shit, his movement is so good. He'd be like bouncing on a wall, come off, shoot at you. He would melee bounce you. Like he was a dude that would do that. But Cali North was also one that would do it as well. So another something I would want to see done, corrected. Weapon sliding.
Like if they were to fix weapon sliding, it changes the game a shit ton when you think about it.
Did you know that the animation to pick up is actually longer in Gears 1 than Gears 3?
Yeah, because they sped it up because they removed the weapon sliding
Exactly.
as part of it. So like the Gears One pickup time is like
Bam! Your head's off. Bam!
but like so many maps were contingent on weapon sliding to actually work well. You think about like canals, for example.
Yep. So I mean, if you don't know, like if you didn't have a strategy about the way you did this, so there's also some things that just need to be fundamentally changed, the way spawning works. But for instance, well, they don't need to be fundamentally changed. You just need to think about this ahead of time. Some of you guys don't even know this because again, we played this at a very high level, competed. So if you remember on Gears of War One, when you joined into a server, it was based on your spawn order. So for a map like Canals, if you joined in first, you might get the first like Canals was like two people in a line, and then the first two was like I think one and three, and the back two were two and four. And so your first person that had to join in on the server would be like we'd have Cali North join in, right? So he would have to run to the bridge, slide because their other one person is going to run to the bridge and slide, and then hope that he doesn't get headshot and completes his slide first. Like there was stuff like that. Like you had to have your either one or three person grab the sniper because they would be closer to the snipe spawn off of the beginning. And a lot of people don't even realize there was like really granular stuff like that that made a difference in your game. So I mean, there's things like that that I don't, and I'd hope they don't go to Gears 2, right? Like with the inconsistent ass, one side has a really long spawn and the other side has this spawn that gets to a power weapon super fast. Then they
Right.
smoke you out and you don't even know like what's going on. Like, so I really think they need to think about if it's coming back. Um, Weapon sliding is something, but also like initial spawns is like a thing that really matters. So I would definitely like to see something, kind of come out of that. Uh, Shotgun spread.
Talk about shotgun. Yeah. It has such a huge impact too, because like the fact that it was inconsistent is the reason that strafing was bigger in Gears One than it was in other titles. It was just because the shotgun just straight up wouldn't down you very frequently, unless you had actives. The active damage boost was a huge crutch for Gears One. So like, it'd be interesting to see what that game plays like with shotgun spread that doesn't suck.
Yeah, look, I just feel like people don't remember. Like, remember how people would just shoot at the wall. I remember when we were testing the spread, like when people actually started to break it down, like people were shooting at the wall, and the spread was like what? And then they changed to the butterfly spread. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Like,
because that release had a bunch of randomness to it, and then they made it so it was somewhat more consistent. But it was
just
like
so
it was
much.
consistent, like out on the edges, right? It wasn't like centralized.
There's just so much. Like, you guys, look. The more I think about this, like, do you guys remember this shit? Do you guys remember this stuff? Like, what are you talking about? Just looking at this, like, what? All right. Remove active reload damage boost. Look, like I said, I've said this time and time and time again. I feel like from a weapon standpoint, Judgment got it right. You do not want active reload boost.
You're going to get soundbited on that.
I don't care. They got weapon balance right.
No, there's just say Judgment got it right. That's going to be the soundbite.
They got weapon balance right.
Weapon
balance.
Arctic Judgment got it right, and they'll have the soundbite.
So
your political career is done. You're never going to run for office.
Care. I've said this before. I've said it before. Be mad. I don't care. From a balance standpoint, Judgment got weapon balance right. Every other game has failed. Gears 1 through 3 because of active reloads, and as soon as they removed it, it was like, oh, wait a minute, this actually feels pretty good. I felt like it was really good. The nades thing, I think the nades are I don't like all that.
Yeah.
But from a pure weapon standpoint, like, I think they got it right. Stopping power was not in Gears of War 1. And I don't want it to return at all. So I feel like, if people like Gears of War 1 because it didn't have active reload, it's something that needs to return. Now, look, I'm going to call a lot of people out on this, Colin. I'm going to call a shit ton of people out on this. These motherfuckers out here, it's not necessarily y'all in the chat. Some of y'all might be in the chat. Y'all mofos was over here complaining about Gears of War Judgment firing from the middle of the screen. Gears of War 1 fires from the middle of the fucking screen.
Yeah. Oh, could you imagine? Do you remember all the videos when Judgment came out of people?
Oh my god, I got backpacked.
Do you remember all the people breaking it down? Like, look at how many of my pellets hit this guy and how it didn't kill.
Backpacked.
If you went to Gears 1 and counted the pellets, you'd be like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, like, come on, guys. Like, this is what makes me upset. Like, if you aren't a legacy player, you don't know this stuff, right? Like, and then when you play a new game, you shit on it because you don't know this stuff. So Gears of War 1 is center of the screen. So all the people that were on Gears 2 and Gears 3 talking about, especially Gears 2, that's what makes me mad. Because people will be like, oh man, remember we were sitting there like, where's the fire coming from? Oh, it's coming from the barrel of the gun. We figured that out like 3 weeks in. Oh,
that explains how
now.
Everything's missing. Yeah.
Right. So we adjusted, and then it went back to Judgment. We adjusted again, but everybody else is like, oh no, why did they change it? Dude, they changed it from Gears 1 to Gears 2. Like, come on. That's what makes me really upset. That hurts my soul that people are on the forums, on Gears of War forums, showing backpack videos like, this is not new. What? This is not new. This is
Whoa, you killed the guy behind you? No way.
So
there's videos of
like,
Gears 1 guys who would intentionally do it with a sniper. Like, they would try to back up on people and then shoot,
yep.
like, for the highlight reel.
Yep. Yeah. So that's stuff that's like, come on, man. Y'all can't be complaining about stuff like that if it was in the OG game. When we going back to the OG game, people are like, oh yeah. Wait, these are the same people that were like, fuck Judgment. Everything about Judgment I hate.
And the shotgun's awful. Backpacking people. Shots aren't killing people.
If this is a real thing, we will see. Because, wait, I believe Judgment only sold like 1 million copies versus. So there's 5 million people that could potentially play this one that either played Gears 3 or Gears 2 and didn't play Gears 1.
They're going to be like, pain.
Yeah, they're going to be like, oh, why is my shot not coming from the barrel of the gun?
Not that it's bad. Like, personally, like I thought both fine,
It's not.
both ways
Well,
were
they're
fine.
fine.
But people overreacted, I think, on Judgment.
Overreacted.
And if you were one of the people that bashed the shit out of Judgment Shotgun, and you're also getting hyped for like a Gears One remaster or remake, I think you have to go kind of check yourself for a moment.
That's all I want.
That's
I want
all.
some reality checks to happen right now because people were just shitting on that game unjustly because they didn't remember certain things or they didn't experience them at all. I just want to. I have to be the conscience that's remind some of your folks out here. Damn. Okay, so netcode and host advantage.
Yeah, that's huge.
I don't.
Huge.
I don't know how they're gonna do it. I mean, honestly, if they go dedicated servers, okay. But you know what's gonna happen? They're gonna have the Gears 3 effect where if you're just tearing up somebody, you're gonna be like, oh,
dedicated
he's
supposed to be
host.
down.
Oh,
Dedicated
he's
supposed to be down.
host.
Yeah.
Do you guys look? This is what trips me out about the Gears community. They could be inside the server warehouse, right? They could be with all micro. They could be in Microsoft place of work in the building that they're housing all of the Gears servers. They go home and play. They'll be like, "Oh, host." It's like what? What? You just can't take their word for it. No, it's host advantage. I can tell. These dudes, they can get escorted. They can do a full tour of the damn dedicated servers. And this here is our dedicated server for Gears of War 3. We're also cross using it with the new Gears of War Remastered version, so there'll be no latency issues for you, buddy. Goes home, dies to a shotgun. Oh my god, host!
Especially in Gears 1, all the times that you would shoot someone 3 times and then get chunked. Could you imagine? Could you
Oh
imagine?
man.
Could you imagine everyone raging about the host advantage when there isn't one?
So it's just too funny, man. I can't wait to hear that. I'm hoping that they have dedicated servers, but host advantage was so real in Gears 1. It was definitely a major factor in competitive matches, LAN matches, online matches. Everything across the board was affected by host.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think some people were questioning whether they should do matchmaking or server browsers. And I don't honestly know. I mean,
It'd be nice if they did server browsers, I think.
I would actually like both.
I'd like server browsers broken up by buckets. You know what I mean? So like you would go into you'd select server browser and UT3 actually does or UT4 actually does something similar right now. So you would like go and you'd select you guys have the hubs in UT.
Yeah.
So it'd be something like that where you kind of select your hub and there can be one for competitive, one for like casual quick match, one for ranked or whatever, and you just kind of like go in that way. Where like it used to be like server browsers in Gears 1 was you and your buddies would go into ranked and then you'd set it to execution 14 rounds because someone already has a 15 round game up. So your buddies do to search for the 14 round game and you would join in order so you can all be on the same team for the ranked match.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like it was pretty ghetto. It's pretty
Yeah.
ghetto.
I remember all of that.
But if they did something like that, it'd be cool.
The other thing to think about with server browsers is I remember if you tore up somebody in a server, you would get kicked.
Yeah. People would be salty.
That would be a thing. People get salty if you join those server browsers. I mean, you can feel good about yourself, I guess. But just remember, getting kicked was a thing.
Well, getting kicked in a 19 round execution match was fucking annoying.
Yeah. So
Sitting there playing for an hour to get booted before the game ends.
kind of concerned about that. The other thing I think that people need to kind of remember, and we're going to talk about weapon balance overall. I don't want to go through every weapon, but at least some of the ones that made a difference. We don't have Boltok on here, but I've been thinking about Boltok a little bit. I think the Boltok was actually not that good in Gears 1, and then it got better in Gears 2. I feel like
No one really used it in Gears 1 at all.
I feel like it wasn't used,
And no one picked up the hammer burst at all.
no one picked up the hammer burst. It was god awful.
Part of that was that Lancer was just all around pretty good. Like it had when you had actives with that Lancer, it's pretty solid.
Yeah. So
But yeah, both those weapons saw no use. Like there was no such thing as an off pickup. Like it was just nades and power weapons.
Yep. So speaking of nades, there was you couldn't nade tag a wall, but you could nade tag a person. I don't even remember.
I think that's right. You couldn't nade tag walls.
There was no wall tags. I remember that. So if some of those elements return, I don't know how much of this they would cross over, but I don't want that to come back at all. Nade tagging. I actually like the nades as is.
Do you remember the ship chainsaw? The chainsaw on ship was was a fucking vacuum.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, people rev it up and then you get sucked into them. Oh yep. Yeah.
And there was no interrupt, if I remember correctly. You couldn't interrupt them by shooting the weapon.
Yeah.
It got patched out in like one of the first TUs, but could you imagine if they went from V 1.0 of Gears and just ported 1.0? How horrendous it would be.
People would not be happy. I can tell you that much. I don't know. I don't know how much nostalgia is going to kick in for a lot of folks. So, Colin, we talked to you. I mean, you said the torque bow was awful, but then I mentioned sniper downs, and then you were like, wait, maybe it wasn't that bad. It was just sniper was just so dominant. So, Gears 1, if you got an active reload, again, if actives are out, this isn't necessarily a problem. But Gears 1, active reload sniper did an automatic down. So you would get 3-shot down all the time in Gears 1. And then it got removed in Gears 2 because it was cheap as hell.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely something. When you talk about power weapons, it was like boom, snipe, and then there were like occasionally somebody would be like pretty good with the torque bow and you might get a couple torque kills.
Yeah.
But most of the time it was just boom, snipe.
I just remember on River, people would rush past it. Like, we would rush water, but we wouldn't grab it, ever. Like, we'd always just push across. Because at some point it was like, this is basically just a dead character. Like, he's not lancering or pistoling. So, yeah, I think it's... the torque wasn't very good.
3-round boom shot. Boom shot didn't have as big of a splash damage, I don't believe.
I think Patch sent it back and forth a few times, if I remember right.
Yeah.
There was a point where it was downing, if you remember. And they got rid of that.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember if that was ship or if it was like one of the TUs after. But I know it went back and forth. It wasn't great, though. It was hard to get, like, you could dodge a boom shot.
Yep. It wasn't like Gears 3.
It was
or Gears 2 for that matter.
It was the most balanced, but it spawned every minute. So, like, a lot of times you get 2 or 3 boom shots and just went around that way.
Yep. So, I mean, those are some of the things that from a weapon balance thing we talked about. And then there's the question I saw someone post on YouTube already is like, should they introduce new weapons or the old, I mean, what is the old weapons?
Like Gears 2, Gears 3 weapons?
I don't even know what you would call them. Are they the old weapons or the new weapons? Hammer Dawn was okay. I mean, it just wasn't on any of the competitive map. Oh, no, it was on
it was on
Fuel Depot. Fuel Depot.
And rooftops when you're playing GBs.
That was a 6-hour matches guaranteed if you got rooftops. So bad.
We talk about maps real quick.
Okay.
If you look at the Gears 1 map pool, it really wasn't. They were like consistent maps, right? But there weren't like a lot of great maps. I think in the end our competitive pool was 6 maps. But if we had the choice, we probably would have dropped Fuel Depot at some point.
Yeah, Fuel Depot was not
because it was massive, right? And it played pretty slow. And like we tried Tyro Station for a while. Tyro didn't work out. You think about the other maps. Escalation is one of the worst Gears maps ever made.
Mausoleum was this big.
Mausoleum was probably the worst Gears map ever made. No, sorry, that's
Escalation.
That's not true at all.
It's
no,
Escalation.
Overpass.
Escalation.
It goes Overpass, Escalation, and then Mausoleum.
Escalation. What's a Hail?
Hail was bad too. I forgot about Hail.
Escalation, Hail.
Yeah.
Overpass.
And then
Mausoleum.
Rooftops was fun in a way, but like it wasn't great.
Rooftops was not fun.
It was just campy.
Why would you ever cross the middle?
Yeah, it's like that's 4 maps that are dead, right? The ship of 10 maps.
Right.
Those 4 maps were all pretty much dead. Tyro Station had its moments, but it wasn't a great map in my opinion. And even like the maps that were in the pool were okay in my opinion. So.
What's up, Quinn?
But it had the best Gears map ever made, which is War Machine. To answer your question, Stealthy on Land. War Machine was by far the best because it spread everyone out, and you got to have lots of one-on-one encounters that had big, meaningful impact across the map.
Right.
Like the guy up top winning his battle gave you the cross. The guy at mid boxes winning the battle gave you a cross on the guy playing on a jump up. Sniper guy winning the battle, let him push across. Like, so good.
There's a lot of good stuff. Look, I hate to be the dude that's like all up in people's shit about Gears 1 maps, but I didn't like that many maps. I only liked one map, really.
War Machine, right?
Maybe two. War Machine and Clock Tower were probably
Clock Tower's fun.
my favorite maps in the game. Gridlock is like you think about. Here's the thing about Gears, right? Right hand advantage matters so much in the game, and every single map had a good side and a bad side. Every single map, because one side always had right hand advantage, and the other side did not. So you had to pretty much play your cards right on what side you got off of the initial spawn, either spawning locust or cog, and that really mattered. And so gridlock was one of those ones where I think if you spawned cog side was good side. You had cog side. You spawn cog side off the beginning of the map is like so hard to push the snipe tower, which means that not all, but a lot of your effort needs to get put into going boom. But if that cog side got sniped faster than you could get boom, then it's basically a stalemate and nobody's moving because if you move, you got sniped down. Like,
yeah, I think
there were so
like,
many bad situations like that over and over and over again.
Biggest thing was eventually the map got to a point where Insanes, who were the best team in the world at the point, were playing a guy in the fucking tower, and just like camping up there, playing the slow game, almost every single round.
Yep.
So like the fact that that was even like the best strat at the time, I think is indicative of the fact the map didn't play that well. Canals is another one where Canals was like 50-minute matches sometimes.
Yeah.
Like you just straight up couldn't push into a good sniper just getting actives all the time. So
Yep.
yeah, like if you look at the maps, like they really weren't that great in my opinion. That said, if you dig a little bit deeper into some of the DLC stuff, if they release like all the DLC maps on top of the regular maps, it'd be pretty cool.
No, what they need to do is put all of the maps from Gears
All
of
the
War
maps from
in.
Gears of War ever in there.
Yeah. Then we have a nice pool. I would be happy with some Gears 3 maps.
Some
The end of
H2A
Gears 2
stuff.
maps, the DLC for Gears of War 2 at the end, some of the best maps I've ever played in Gears of War. It was like Nowhere, Sanctuary, what's that one, Lost? Oh, I can't remember what it is. The wider one, it's like a graveyard or something. I don't know what it is. But all of those, like, really, really good. Every single one was like a pretty good map. Memorial was one. Really good stuff.
Yeah, like,
It's like multiple pathways.
criminally underplayed because we didn't get to compete on them
Yep.
because of the DLC issues with Gears 2.
Yep. And that's
Criminally
another
underplayed.
issue, Colin.
Yep.
For the love of God, I hope everything in this world makes it so that when they patch the game and folks are going to compete on land, that the patch also works on land. I went to several Hypefestation events where Pete was literally helping them get the maps working on land because
the night of the tournament. Yeah.
there was the night of the tournament because there was issues getting those things running because it just didn't work properly. So I hope that is something that they think about if there is a remaster and they try to introduce some maps.
So I guess all that
Father's
said,
Garden. Thank you.
All Father's Garden, yeah. So all of that said, do you think the correct approach is to do a port, maybe with some updates, maybe fix some of the things we just mentioned, where it's straight up, it's Gears 1 ported, remastered, I guess would be the correct term, right?
Right.
That's what they usually use for the HD remakes, or not remake, remasters. Or would you prefer to see a Halo 2 anniversary approach, where for the H2A stuff, we took, we went essentially from the most recent Halo and kind of like demade everything back into the Gears 1 in this case. So like you would take Gears 3, you would start stripping out stuff like wall canceling, you start stripping out all the things which make it Gears 3 versus Gears 1. That way you kind of get some of the benefits of the more modern game and try and recreate the magic, I guess. Like, which approach do you think would be the appropriate one for something like this, where you can't have both? Let's stay up front. You can't have both ways. You know what I mean? I think it's an interesting question that would highly dictate what the title will be like, right?
I mean, I feel like actually going the way of Halo 2 Anniversary is the correct way to do it. Uh, I don't want to port. I just don't want to port because there's a bigger risk of a lot of the issues that were ultimately resolved by the Gears 3 being reintroduced in Gears 1 and having to deal with all of the things that we mentioned all over again and being like, oh, this is not very fun. Or this is not as fun as I thought it would be. Like giving me 1080p, 60 FPS, but the rest of the stuff is like old out of the box Gears 1 is not cool. I would prefer things to be like, I mean, here's the thing with that, Colin. New things will just be introduced, right? There'll be new issues that arise that are either be
Right.
gameplay balance issues or whatever that'll ultimately have to be tweaked. But
I mean, you even think like if they use the PC port as the base instead of the Xbox version, like that alone would be a whole different code base, which is what you
yep,
saw with some of the like Halo 2 PC, for example, has its own set of differences and issues that the other ones don't. So like just from that alone, like there's little tiny differences even between consoles or re-releases. So like if they use the PC as the base and started with that as the code base, then you'd already have some new issues introduced. Plus, on top of doing the platform stuff. So I think it's interesting. Like I'm not sure what people would be more receptive to. I'd imagine more receptive to the H2A approach.
mm-hmm.
Um, I think that H2A approach would probably be the one which gets the most long-term play, where like the straight-up remaster approach would be some like more fan service, like for the more hardcore guys. But I don't think it would. Personally, I don't think it would do as well.
If you like this video, you should probably click on the one down below. That'll take you to another video. You may like it. A little bit about me. I'm a former pro player. I play PC and console, mostly shooters. I also have a gaming podcast. I do tips and tactics, live gameplays. Check out my Twitch. Also, I work in the industry. Why are you not subscribed?